Welcome to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno.
Is the nature of the paranormal different in the American Southwest than it is here in New England? Is the nature of UFOs changing? When dealing with the paranormal, how do you keep your imagination or your ego from running away with you?
Greetings and welcome to the 585th broadcast of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. I am Ben, and those flagrant questions came from my co-host and partner in the paranormal, my dad. And this evening we bring you a new guest with local connections, but far-flung paranormal experiences. And we welcome your calls this evening. The numbers are 800-449-1240. That's from anywhere in the U.S. or Canada. And 401-766-1240, that is locally. Also, we will monitor emails. Paul at behindtheparanormal.com is what you're going to want to email your questions to.
Tina Marie Caouette is a native of Massachusetts, but moved to Las Vegas in 2008. There followed a number of UFO experiences that changed her life. Tina has since become a novelist, her first one being Alien Deceptions, published in 2011. She believes she has discovered the truth behind these phenomena. Tina is also well known, especially in the Southwest. She spent several years with Las Vegas UFO hunters and helped start Majestic 12 TV. She was executive producer for all content and shows. She spent off hours as an investigator for MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, and she handled many cases in the Las Vegas area, which has been a hotbed of UFO activity for many decades. In 2012, Tina went to work for KDWN 720 Radio in Las Vegas. There she handles most of the on-air board work as well as occasionally produces live shows. Today, Tina hosts the show Restricted Airspace on KWDN, which, like our show, covers all things paranormal. It airs every Friday night at midnight Pacific Standard Time. It's 3 a.m. here in the East. It's 2 hours long and is the #1 paranormal show in the Las Vegas Valley. And Tina gives us her website, TinaMarieEntertainment.com.
So Tina Marie Caouette, welcome to Behind the Paranormal.
Well, welcome, guys. It's nice to actually talk to you. I've been following you guys for years.
Yeah, so many people think we're mythical.
Yes.
but very kind of you to say. Thank you, Tina.
Okay, so
you're on coast to coast tonight too. So congratulations.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's been about 4 years since I've been on coast. My son here is, I believe, the youngest guest they ever had. He's been on twice.
Yeah, except I sort of.
They went and got old on us.
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah.
I got too tired. I couldn't deal with being up till 5 in the morning.
What do you think it makes me feel? Anyway, it's worth it.
That's true. All right, so let's start off with a little something simple, little something local. So, where in Massachusetts are you from?
You know, I grew up in Central Mass, which is if you take Worcester and you go straight up north, little Winchendon Gardner area, right on the New Hampshire borderline. What's interesting is when I was a child, I had an experience there, but I kind of forgot about it, blew it off, didn't think anything of it. Until I started to come out here and have my experiences, it's one of the reasons why I got into the Andresian, effect, because her experience took place in Ashburnham, which was only like 10 miles away from where I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of interesting. It was listening to the commercials before coming on here. Being a native of the New England, Massachusetts area, it's kind of refreshing to hear. Thank you.
Well, I couldn't believe the forecast, actually, the temperatures, compared to what we've been through this winter. I'm sure you've heard from friends and relatives here. But it's good. No, it's always good to have someone local on. It's too bad you weren't going to be... When you're up here, let us know, because we'd like to have you in studio.
Yeah. You know what happened is we were scheduled to be in studio with you, and then the charity event that I was coming back for, they bumped it out from the 3rd to the 9th. I think it was because they got wind that the Pacquiao fight was going on.
Oh, yes, yeah.
So they wanted to bump out the charity event. So I got bumped for a fight. Go figure.
Okay. Well, we got preempted for the. What was the Reds? Not the Reds.
Bruins.
The Bruins one time. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so to continue with our questions, Ben, take it away.
So, what was the big UFO experience you had when you first moved to the Las Vegas area?
It happened just after around like 2008, early 2009. The first experience, the first conscious thing I remember is just going outside. For some reason, and it was like January, I just felt the need to go outside. I go outside, I look up, and I see this light in the sky. Now, at this point, you have to understand that I had no interest in the paranormal at all. I wasn't, watching UFO shows, grabbing UFO books. People who have experiences do that. Well, even though I had experienced this as a child, I kind of just completely forgot about them and had no interest. And I'm standing outside looking. I see this light come across the sky, and the first thing I thought was, oh, cool, look, a satellite. And it just stopped. And then I was like, well, that's not right. And it got brighter. And what I mean by brighter is that it looked like it was coming down, and as it came down, it got brighter to the point where I put my hand up to block it because it was like looking into the sun. It was extremely bright. And then it disappeared. In just a second, the light just flashed out, disappeared, went straight up, gone. Okay. I came in, I'm like, oh my God, what did I just see? That's just really weird. And it was that night I went to bed, and my book, Alien Deceptions, it was almost like somebody took a DVD and put it in my head. Now, at this point, I had never written anything. I was not a writer. I had no interest in writing. And this whole thing came into my head. But again, it's not being a writer. I just kind of forgot about it. Over the next week is when I started having the really weird things happen. I couldn't sleep, very restless. I felt like there was something around me, but I couldn't quite put my fingers on it. It was I could hear these voices in my ears, and it was almost like you're trying to tune in an AM station and you can't quite get it, so you catch a word here, a word there. That's what I was getting. It was just driving me nuts. To the point I was about ready to commit myself because I thought I was just having this nervous breakdown and I was cracking. I'm like, something is wrong. And that is when I had what I consider the first of 12 experiences to this date, where I was taken off-world. And I was laying down, I couldn't sleep. I looked up to my left, and I noticed, I thought it was the light from the smoke alarm. And it started getting brighter, and then it was almost like a cool breeze, but it was like a static charge. Like I could just feel like your hair stand on edge. Like if you rub a balloon on your hair and your hair starts to stand up, that's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah, we know that feeling. Yeah,
you're Ghost Hunter, so you know, yeah. And it started coming towards me, and it gets bigger and bigger. And next thing you know, I just remember falling, like passing out, falling asleep, and waking up in what I say it's a medical room. It wasn't a big room, maybe 12 feet by 16 feet. I was definitely sitting on a metal table. I remember looking out, and there was a gentleman in a white coat across from me. He looked human, but the eyes are what got me. They weren't like glowing, but they were translucent, like a bluish type translucent. And I just noticed that I was kind of scared, but there was a feeling of like, okay, don't be scared, it's okay. And it was when I started getting nervous because he turned around, he had something in his hand, and I didn't know what it was, and I was, okay, I'm just having a dream, And this girl came in from the only door I remember seeing, which was to my right. She walked in, and she said, you're not dreaming. We got to give you a shot in order for you to spend any time up here. Now, I hate needles. And she mentioned the word shot, and I was about ready to, I'm like, where can I get out of here? This is a horrible dream. She said, this isn't a dream. She goes, we need to give you this shot. It needs to raise your vibrational frequency in order for you to spend any time up here because we've got a pretty neat gift we want to give you. And she touched me on the shoulder, and as soon as she touched me on the shoulder, I had this immense feeling like everything is going to be just fine. And the doctor came over. I considered him a doctor. That's kind of what he looked like. And gave me a shot in my left leg. And to this day, I still have the mark. And what was interesting is they gave me the shot. She said, you're going to find some really neat changes with this, and we'll talk again. And next thing you know, I woke up, and I'm on the couch. Now I'm thinking, okay, that was a really weird dream, until I looked down at my leg, and there was a little blood on my leg, and right where they gave me the shot, there was a mark. And I freaked. I completely lost it. I had a doctor's appointment 2 days later. I'm like, okay, I can't go in and say, all right, you can't go in and tell your doctor. I think I was abducted by aliens, because they're going to write you a prescription to the funny farm. So I just asked her, I said, can you do me a favor? Can you just take a look? I think it's like an ingrown hair on my leg. And she looked at it, and she says, did you recently get a shot with like one of those, power injection type needles? And I'm like, no. And I kind of played it off, but that's kind of what it was. It looked like a little gun, and it was just a little, like a little burst of air, and that's what I had in my leg. Well, what's interesting about this whole shot thing is I was told later on in my visit that the shot, one of the positive things is, since I've got that shot, which was January of 2009, I have not been sick a day. Not a cold, not a sniffle, not a flu. I've been around people with the flu. I'm like, breathe on, nothing. So right. that was the first, conscious memory of being taken off world. Before I met with the person I consider, I call the elder. The girl is called Amy. Those are the two that I mainly dealt with while I was up there. And it's so hard because, as an investigator, and I got into investigating because of these experiences, and it's very hard to try to explain to people who are either skeptics or really non-believers that, I'm kind of a, I don't want to use the word skeptic because I think it's a negative term, but, I do look at things differently now than I probably would have. If you would have told me back in 2007, UFOs are real, people have been abducted, I would have been like, yeah, right. Now that what happened to me, it's hard to, when people say, well, how do you know what happened? Can you prove it? Can you show us a dead alien body? Show us a sonic screwdriver? Show us something. And when you can't physically show or produce the evidence, it's very, very frustrating because people are looking at you like, oh, she's the crazy girl in the room. Nice. So, you've talked to enough abductees, and I don't use that word. I always use the word contactee because, to me, abductee is taken all the time without free will. I was given the chance. If I wanted to, I could have turned it down. So I use the word contactee. And over the last few years, when you sit and you talk to other contactees and other abductees who have had negative experiences or positive experiences, that, I can pick up now on people who have had an experience because there's an emotion, there's a fear, there's a connection that you have with these people. So you can tell people who are just looking for the 15 minutes of fame, and the people who really, really had the experiences are just looking for answers.
All right. Well, Tina, several questions arise. Ben has a question, but I just have one or two of my own.
Please, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, son. Tina, there seem to be similarities to other reports of abductions we've heard. Neither of us has ever had any experience like that I know of. Anyway, I don't know, maybe Ben has, but
I have not.
He never told me
that I know of.
Yeah, but in any case, one thing that stands out is the idea that you remembered consciously, without apparently hypnotism. Is the station burning down? No, hypnotism.
I wouldn't joke about that.
No. Okay, sorry. Anyway, did you ever have any problem remembering this experience? That strikes me as a little different.
What was interesting is over my experiences, I remember bits and pieces, and I would come back and I'd start. The more I was taken, the more I came back, would take notes and start remembering stuff. And there's sections that I know are missing. There's parts of the experience that I know happened that I can't recall. I know they're there. So when I tell people certain things that I experienced, I think they were, my feeling is it was what they allowed me to come back to remember. I honestly believe there's more information. I've never done the regression. I've thought about it. But when I've talked to a few people who've done regressions, one of the things that they all told me is sometimes there's a reason why they block certain things. Either mentally, we're not capable of handling certain things, or they don't want certain things revealed. And what they said is, maybe your experience wasn't positive. Maybe you're interpreting it as positive, and maybe it was negative. I certainly hope not. I don't want to find that out. But they said, if you do the regression, you have to understand that you're opening those floodgates, and you can't. It's like Pandora's box. You can't put it back in once you open them.
Yeah, that's kind of we have heard that sort of thing. Well, the question of hypnotism is an open one. I think it was very popular when I started out in the 70s, and then was sort of fell into disrepute to some degree, and then was rehabilitated. And now it's being used. So, assuming that sort of regression or hypnotic regression is legitimate, we have heard from people who have had seemingly positive experiences, or just experiences that they remembered, and they seem to open the doors to, as you say, experiences that they did not remember once they had the hypnosis. But be that as it may, let me ask you this. Who were they?
Okay.
What do you mean by alien?
Well, the two people that I dealt with mostly, now I know I crossed paths while I was up there with others, but the two main people that my memory remembers is the person I consider the elder. They both had human form, but again, I don't want to say they were Nordic looking, but they were like that. But there was their eyes were the most catching thing, because they had this like very translucent. I guess you could almost, like if you look at the tail end of like the Millennium Falcon, and the exhaust is like kind of really sparkly type, like a bluish white type. Well, that's kind of what their eyes were. But I had the impression that these human bodies that they were representing were for my benefit. The more I look back, I think they were more. I don't want to say light beings, because I think when you get into that, then you start getting into a whole different area of paranormal. But they kind of felt like that. The only thing I can say is with the elder, when I first met him, and I was brought into this room, this conference room, and the reason why I know they were alien in nature, because they first showed me, when I met the elder, that he brought me over and he waved his hand on the screen, and this giant wall was like an aluminum type wall. It looked aluminum, but it was the wall in this conference room. This is where we always met. And he kind of waved his hand, and there was a screen up there, and he said, just watch and learn. Now, he never spoke, and what this is interesting with him is he thinks, or he feels, human communication is a very primitive form of communication. So he doesn't use vocals at all. It's all in-your-head telepathy. Where Amy, because she's younger and been around this planet longer than the elder, she's been around the planet longer than the elder, but the elder's older than she is. She spoke English, but it was a really weird English. It was almost like a broken English, a perfect English, like if you went back in the 1600s, 1500s. Her pronunciations of words was accurate, but there was no... When people talk here, they talk with either accents or affluentions, where you'll have highs and lows. Hers was very monotone, very even keel. The sentence structure was almost too perfect, and then sometimes it was very short. But she would communicate back and forth with me to English, but she also did telepathy as well.
Okay.
And whenever the elder wanted to make on a point, it wasn't just in your head. It was like a scratch and sniff 4D effect. I mean, it was as if you were right there in the moment. And they showed me my childhood. And that's when I started having, that's when the conscious memories of experiences I had as a child happened, where I grew up in a very Catholic family. So my parents always just, oh, it's just your imagination, oh, you're just seeing angels, or, it was never UFOs, alien, that was never discussed as a kid.
Well, may I ask you, sorry to cut you short, I just want to talk about other things too, but before we leave that subject, do you think that the guardian angel idea that little Catholic children are always taught is a folkish veneer for some reality that involves these, whoever they may be or whatever they may be, looking in on us now and then and kind of doing what they were doing with you, if it was a legitimate experience?
You know, I honestly feel that a lot of people from a childhood age, whether they have imaginary friends, whether they see things, like you said, angels or stuff along that line, you know, a lot of the paranormal or the ufology has switched to the either interdimensional beings or, you know, they're not really ETs, they're more ghosts or apparitions. But I honestly believe that a lot of people who come from religious families are having experiences, and they are interpreted as guardian angels, you know, words from God or whatever, that's put into their head, because when you start adding religion into this field, it's very hard for somebody who is in any form of religion to step back and say aliens exist.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
I see your point.
Their own faith.
Yeah.
So I think as a kid, your parents are going to tell you what it is. Now, growing up, when I was a kid, we didn't have access to what these kids have now, which is all this information on the Internet. Had I had that as I was a little bit older, and as more socially accepted the paranormal or ufology is, even on TV, I might have looked into things differently. But I just kind of like blew it off and said, you know what, I just don't want to deal with it. I just want to be a kid.
No, a lot of people do that, yeah. So Ben has a question.
So have you ever asked yourself, why you?
Every single day.
Have they ever given you an answer?
You know, what they try to tell me is there's two reasons why they contact people. One is they are following a particular genetic trait for whatever reason they're following. They never went into any detail with me on that. What they did say is, but they also contact people for what they consider their version of disclosure. The way the elder tried to explain it to me is there are certain people that we feel, and I'm like, and I couldn't understand this because when he says, you know, we feel, he was assuming that he had seen my future, which makes sense to me, that certain people can handle what would be thrust upon them, and certain people can't. And they look for certain people that they know that will have an influence on others and be able to handle the backlash that comes from this. And trust me, I tell people, knowing what I know now, not just from people not in ufology, but from people within ufology, I would never have opened my mouth and said I had an experience, because it's not something I would even wish on my worst enemy. Because when you go through it, you are looked at it under a microscope. Everything you say, everything you do. You know, you have people who are skeptics who, like I said, you could throw a dead alien body in front of them in a UFO, and they'd still tell you this isn't real. You're making this up.
No, that's true.
So that's, I think, the toughest thing is, you know, and I think I understand now more, because there are days I sit there and go, I cry. I go, why me? I can't take this anymore. I'm going insane. Just stop. And, you know, I'll have to, months. I've had, 6, 7, 8 months spells where absolutely nothing.
Well, one of the reasons I ask the question is because we, and especially me over all the years, have run into many cases where people are convinced that these things are what they appear to be. And they may very well be, but they may very well not be. And there are situations where I've known they were dealing with what we refer to as a parasite, something that is a mimic, as in any other part of nature. And they were still convinced these were enlightened masters or some kind of thing. And there was an ego factor involved. I'm not saying there is with you. I'm just saying with the people I've worked with in the past.
There's a lot of ego in ufology.
Well, there is, yes, unfortunately. And it clouds the issue. But, what say you to that? How do you know that these beings are what they appear to be.
I'll tell you how
and are not
I know.
playing you like a fiddle.
No, I'll tell you how I know. Because a lot of people who have had experiences don't like when I speak, if I go to an event. Because one of the first things I say to them, I say, those of you that are coming here listening to me speak, I said, if I was in your chair, before I even say a word, I would be looking at me, I would be analyzing everything I say, and I would say, listen, this is nothing more than a great fiction book.
Okay.
And I have to accept that. I have to accept that what I experienced this might not have been a positive effect. What I experienced this may not be real. Deep down inside, I can't change what happened. I know without a doubt what happened. But at the same time, I understand the skepticism. I understand people saying, well, you know what, maybe it was this. How do you know? And I'm like, listen, I don't know how I know. I just know. And my job is not to convince anybody. You can believe me or not believe me. I know. To me, it doesn't really matter to me. I'm not out to, send a message, and I don't want to be on 15,000 TV shows, and all. I don't want that. I think most people that I've talked to or contacted you have experiences, a lot of them don't want that. They don't want a book deal. They don't want TV specials. What they want is answers. They want justification. Yes. They want a UFO to come down and their friends to show up and walk down the main street with them and say, see, I'm not crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing I can tell people that, I know a lot of experiences when I tell them that. I'm like, listen, I have to say this as a investigator myself.
Okay.
So
all right, well, that's fair enough. Yeah, we're going to take our bottom of the hour break now. You're listening to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno on WOON 1240 in New England's beautiful Blackstone River Valley, where all of a sudden it's summer after a winter like we've had. We'll be right back with Tina Marie Caouette. Stick with us.
Hi, I'm Bob Vila, and I'm going to level with you. I've got your home improvement tip of the day right here.
The Bob Vila Home Improvement Tip of the Day can be heard every day on ON 1240 WOON Woonsocket Radio at 7:45. And it's brought to you by D&S Painting of Woonsocket. They are Rhode Island's trusted choice for residential painting.
Okay, we usually talk about our charities at this point, and we have an important new one we want to discuss with you, but that'll be toward the end of the show. We want to continue our discussion here on Behind the Paranormal with Tina Marie Caouette, New England native and Las Vegas radio star at this point. So, Tina, let's move on to this subject. Now, as we planned this show, you mentioned that there might be some changes going on at Area 51, which isn't far from Las Vegas by the standards of that part of the country. And first of all, for listeners who might not know, why don't you begin by telling us what is Area 51 and what's changing?
Okay, well, there's been a lot of interesting changes out there. Las Vegas is about 90 miles outside of Area 51. A lot of people call it, Groom Lake, Dreamland, all this stuff. It used to be called the Nevada Test Site. And when it first started in 54, it was run by the CIA. And then the Air Force took it over in the early 70s, mid-70s. And just recently, last summer, the CIA has now taken back over Area 51. So the Air Force is no longer the controlling body out there. A lot of the stuff the Air Force is working on has been since moved out of that area. It is now actually called the Nevada Security Site.
Really? And you know this how do you know this?
Well, first of all, it's listed. It wasn't publicly known. But it was listed with just outside the town of Rachel, the area outside of Rachel.
Yeah.
They changed the name in order to document it for the tax purposes.
Oh.
It was just a little slip that most people didn't catch. One of my contacts inside the base told me this was happening, but told me kind of why it was happening. Everything in there has since gone black. Nothing there is owned by the military. It's all NSA. They have been more Janet flights coming and going out of McCarran than ever before.
Yeah, those are flights. Remember, I watched those one day. McCarran International Airport is right next to the pretty much the Strip in Las Vegas, and there are unmarked planes. All they have, at least when I saw, just red stripes on them with no company markings, and they fly out of there every day
no tail numbers, no
nothing. Yeah, which is very strange. And supposedly they bring workers to this secret base about 90 miles away, where I got chased across the desert in 2005. That's another story. But in any case, I just wanted to explain that to the listeners. Go ahead, Tina.
Yeah, we call them just another non-existent transport. That's what we call them.
And they call them Janet flight. Yeah.
Right. And they fly out multiple times, almost, I mean, there's like a schedule that they fly out. They come in and fly out 24 hours a day now. Everything that, you still have like Lockheed Martin and all them, all the special interest groups, if you want to call them that.
Yeah, there are a lot of contractors involved there, yeah.
A lot of contractors. But what was interesting is Rachel, Nevada, which is where some of the people who were working there at the time lived, they had a population, not a big one, about 98. Well, that population has almost been cut in half. A lot of the military people that were there have since either retired or moved on because everything is now controlled by the CIA.
Well, when I was there, like 30 to 35% of the residents had cancer.
Yeah, well, that's true too. But those people have long since gone. A lot of the people, again, that were there were military. You meet some interesting folks when you go out there and you hang out, and they start to trust you.
Yeah.
If you go out there the first time and they don't know who you are, I mean, like I said, I have some great contacts out there because I've been going so long. I know if they tell me stuff and they say, listen, you can say this, but you can't say this, I get it. So they kind of open up, and you buy them a few drinks. Sometimes they'll open up a little bit more. But they are very close-guarded of what is talked about out there. But they just built a brand-new 7-layer, 7th floor, 6 of them underground, huge hangar off of one of the runways. And that was right around the Area 51 part. But they also they're building another one out by the S4 facility as well. So there's a lot of construction for aircraft, but there's no known aircraft that the military is currently working on that's being tested out there.
Well, when I was in the military, it was sort of generally understood that they're about 10 years ahead technologically of what the public knows, and this Area 51 or whatever they may call it in any context was an area where the stealth fighter was developed. For example, that's a fact. So that this place does exist, and secret aircraft are developed there, but there is suspicion that other things are going on there as well.
Right.
So,
you have to understand the stealth aircraft was built in like 77, 78 out there.
That's
in
right.
the early 80s. That was the F-117.
Yep.
So that's the early 80s. We're talking 34 years later, and they just retired that plane, 8-9 years ago. So realistically, they are anywhere from 50 to 75 years more advanced of what's going on out there than we are currently using here in the population.
Very possibly. I'll tell you, Tina, at first I thought that the whole UFO, not the whole UFO story, but much of it in your area was just to deflect attention from the secret, aircraft development out there, which is a standard technique in intelligence work. However, when I got out there and I saw all these white vehicles with government plates, 18-wheeler trucks and stuff in the middle of the desert. Something's cooking there. I don't know. You know better than I do, but...
I took Joey Essex and a film crew out there from Great...
Oh, we were going to ask you about that. Yeah, what happened with that?
Yeah, I took them out there, and what's interesting is they don't show a lot of it. They show a little bit, but they don't show a lot. We were at what they call Campfire Hill, which is, you go down Groom Lake Road, it's about 12.8 miles on your right. It's about a mile away from the border. That's about as close as you can get.
Yeah, I know where it is, yeah.
When we were out there, we were filming. They were going to originally, Joey and the film crew were going to stay the night there. I said, well, it's great if you guys stay the night. It was a Wednesday night. I said, Thursday morning, a lot of times you get the B-2 spirits coming over. If you've never seen those in action, they look like an alien craft. They do maneuvers on Thursday morning. You might catch a glimpse of them. I said, but I'm going to warn you. I said, you're with me. I said, we've already been contacted by the camel dudes. I said, I'm telling you, they're going to come harass you. No, they didn't believe me. We weren't even 5 minutes setting up a camera in that location, and one of the white SUVs, the camel dudes, comes about 8 feet away from us, just stopped. Can't see in the window, and just kind of revved his car a little bit, and then they just drove off. Well, one of the guys picked up his camera and decided to start filming it.
Oh, boy.
U-turn real quick, came over, stopped, and just started, they just really revved the edge, and then kicked up dirt intentionally towards these cameras. And and then about half an hour later, they came back again. Then they parked across the hill area, which shined their light towards us. And this went on, about 7 or 8 times. Well, by the 8th time, by the 4th time, half the crew was like, we don't want to be here. They left. There was a very small crew there, and I was sitting there with Joey. And then when they came by about the 8th time, Joey's like, I can't. I go, Tina, you're leaving. You're not staying here. I don't feel safe. If you're here, because what was funny is one of my contacts is security out there. He was in Special Forces, just security out there. But I never know when he's on. I don't know him, to say, hey, pick up and say, hey, let's go have coffee. But the 7th time that they came by, they were parked right by us, and I just kind of waved at the truck, and the truck honked, and they drove off. And everybody in the film crew goes, do you know them? And I'm like, I don't know, and they drove off, but they were constantly coming and harassing the film crew, and the film crew was so scared that we left. I think it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. They're like, if you're not going to stay here with us, we don't want to be here. Because I said, well, yeah, I mean,
that's the idea. Yeah.
I said, it's your word against theirs. If they shoot you,
it's true. No, I was told what could have happened to me. I don't know, but let's move into talking about your books, Tina. We were intrigued by the title Alien Deceptions. What's the deception? I know it's a work of fiction, but there's always some kind of rationale behind what we name our books.
Right. Well, Alien Deceptions came on basically, we all have a facade. Sometimes we all have a face that we project, which is not the true us sometimes. And I honestly think that there's a part of our government that likes to have that deception that, we don't know anything about UFOs, yet they do. But then you also have the aspect with the aliens. There, just like there are with us, there's good and there's bad, and sometimes it's hard to distinguish between the two because the lines cross.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
When I wrote that book, I had a lot of, I had a contact. Well, this is the interesting story about this book is, although it's a book of fiction, and I did it that way purposely because I was getting into ufology. I was making all these contacts. I was given a contact that worked up at the base, and it was all of a sudden I was given some information. And I started throwing some stuff in my book about, Area 51 and things like this that I was giving because I was kind of naive. I didn't know. It's a book of fiction, right? I'm not walking a nonfiction. It's a book of fiction. Who cares? And I was coming home from a UFO group at 2 o'clock in the morning, and a black SUV in front of me, a black SUV behind me, pulls me over on the 15 South. Now, at 2 o'clock in the morning, there's not many cars. I was freaking out. I'm like, okay, I wasn't speeding. What's going on? When the guy comes out, he was wearing a suit. Didn't show a badge or anything, and he knew my name. He said, Miss Tina Marie, you have some very interesting stuff that you have in your book. I said, you're going to get home. There's going to be an email. We're going to ask you to take it out. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's a book of fiction. I mean, come on. Who are you? And they're like, it's none of your business who we are. I'm like, I'm not going to question. There's like 6 people, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm not questioning these guys. And I was like, I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. I got home, and my contact for the base, the only thing I knew was he was a test pilot. He tested stuff out there, but he also flew out of Nellis. I emailed him when I got home. His email came back as invalid. I'm like, that's weird. Sure enough, the email was, here's certain things we want you to take out of your book. And when I had asked them that there, I said, well, why do I have to take it out of the book? And they said, listen, although it's a book of fiction, people are going to read into it and they're going to look into stuff, and we don't want them looking into it. So you're going to be asked to take it out. If you don't want to take it out, that's fine. We're just going to let you know that accidents happen all the time out here in Vegas.
Gee, I wish people paid that much attention to my books.
Well, when the following day, again, I didn't know this guy's first or last name from the base. I just knew him through emails and through different contact channels that I had, but I didn't know him personally. I read 36-year-old pilot died of a heart attack while working out at Nellis Air Force Base. I went, what? Well, that kind of spooked me a little bit. The following day I came home, and every single email from him, any contact I had from him was wiped from my hard drive. Gone.
Yeah.
Everything was gone.
We have strange things happen with our emails and things, too. But, you never know what it is. It could be just normal. But
yeah, so
okay.
I kind of understand how far I can go with them.
Yeah. So tell us, before we burn up the hour completely, tell us about your website. Where can people find out more? Where can they get your books, et cetera? And what are the books?
Well, right now, Alien Deception is the only one. I've got Project Decor, which is a follow-up fiction book to that, which deals with the underground bases. And then I have my own personal experiences called We Are Not Gods. I'm hoping that'll be out in fall. The problem with that is I've written it twice. I've deleted it twice because I just didn't feel it read properly. It's kind of hard to explain, but a lot of people, you get a lot of these books in from people who are rushed to put something out. It's 190 pages of just gibberish crap.
Yeah. Oh, yep.
I didn't want that. Every time I read it, it just didn't feel right. I said, stop writing it. It was driving me nuts. But I'm back writing it. Hopefully it'll be done sometime in the fall. Get that out. But they can go to restrictedairspace.radio.com or Tina Marie Entertainment, either one of those. But restrictedairspace.radio.com is the better one to go to. It has all my past shows there. They can also go. I've actually stopped doing my show on KDWN. We had a little contract. You're on radio. You understand how those work sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
So right now I'm actually in the process of launching my own online digital radio station called KCOR Radio. So they can go to kcorradio.com. All my archives for my shows, my past guests are there. They're free. They don't cost you anything. Enjoy and let me know what you think.
Very good. Okay. Now, having said that, who is we were intrigued by your mention of the Las Vegas UFO hunter. Who and what is that?
Okay, well, this is going to be I'm not going to mention his name.
No, please not.
I'm not going to give him credence or whatever. But there's one thing I've noticed in ufology is if you want to make money in this field, if you want to have 1,000 people, 2,000, 5,000 people following you, create hoax and fakes. Throw up, drones. Throw up, aircraft. There's a gentleman that supposedly catches UFOs out here every night of the week. And when I approached him and I tried to leave comments that, hey, this is what you're seeing, this is the commercial air traffic coming in from Karen, I know where you are, you're in this location here, this is the new flight pattern coming in, they flipped it up. He's videotaping stuff sometimes on Friday, Saturday night. Well, you go out on a Friday night, there's like 15 planes lined up with white lights. I mean, it looks like a Phoenix lights coming in if you're from a distance.
Well, McCarran is one of the busiest airports I've ever seen.
Yeah, and he was, not only that, but if you've got red flag event going out here at Nellis, you've got, Nevada is one of the few states that allow drones now that can fly in commercial airspace. So we have in fact, Tonopah is where every single drone pretty much in the world, wherever it is flown out of Tonopah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
All the drones are flown out of Las Vegas here. So you constantly have drones. If you have red flag, you have international craft, new craft, all flying when there are, flares dropping. I mean, there's a lot going on in the airspace. And this gentleman, I made a comment. He took offense to it, blocked me, started trashing me, which really ticked me off. He disabled all his comments, so now all his comments on YouTube, you can't leave a comment if you know what it is. He contacted MUFON. MUFON did an investigation. They told him this is what it is. He didn't like their answer, so he trashed them. And he proceeds to keep putting out these videos, even though they're, and what's even worse is two of the people, he's a website designer, two of the people that he is known friends with are also into, they do graphic design for movies out in Hollywood.
I see. All right, well, we get the drift. That's unfortunate, and that's the state of the UFO field, unfortunately, at this point. So before we have to end the show here, give us an update, Tina, if you would, on the latest UFO news from Nevada in particular and the Southwest in general.
Well, there's been a lot of different sightings, and a lot of people are saying that it's a couple of the new crafts that are being tested out at Area 51, which partly is true. The maneuverability of these things are that, but we've had a lot of different UFO reports out here of just weird craft. Now, again, most of them are probably commercial or drones, and if you've ever seen some of the new drones they're testing, they look very, very interesting indeed.
Yeah.
You're not going to hear about them. But what I found interesting is there's been a lot of people out here on the West who are coming forward who've had contact experience, more than ever. And I don't understand, I don't know personally why. It's been a combination of different things. But I think it has something to do with a lot of the different, whether it's seismic activity going on in California.
Yeah, that's interesting, yeah.
It seems to correlate. A lot of the UFO effects or reports have been coming in around those national things. We've had a lot of sightings lately over Lake Mead, and Lake Mead, for whatever reason, is at its lowest point it's ever been since it was since they created the lake back in the 30s.
Yeah, I've heard that. Wow.
So, people think that maybe it's, there's something going to be uncovered down there, and that's why there's a lot of UFO activity.
Yeah. Well, maybe. Now, one thing we notice in our work, and that's how we got into UFO studies, of which we are not UFO experts by any means. As you said, we're primarily ghost researchers, but we're being asked to speak at a lot of UFO conventions lately because of the interest in a sort of what we refer to as paranormal phenomena. In other words, when you have one sort of phenomenon going on in an area, very often there are other kinds of seemingly unrelated paranormal phenomena, such as, you have UFOs. People are saying very often that they'll be complaining about ghost or poltergeist activity in their homes or in the nearby woods or wherever. There might be cryptozoological things going on at the same time, and we feel they're all related, if only by the process by which they manifest. Do you find other sorts of phenomena going on when you run into cases of sightings and this sort of thing, or does it sort of take up all your time just to keep track of the sightings?
Well, it's a twofold question. First of all, I think people who have had experiences, a lot of them tend to have other paranormal activity, and I think that tends to go with whether it's raising your vibrational frequency or whatever. We all vibrate at a certain frequency. We all only see about 10% of the natural light around us. And I think certain people, it's sort of like some people who are nearsighted, some people are farsighted. Well, I think that's kind of what happens, and I think people who have had experiences, for whatever reason, it raises that frequency, and then they start being more in tune around you. Now, the second point, you also have to look at it that in ufology, there has been a shift, especially from people who have been in it for 20, 30 years, that they have gotten away from the beings from another planet and are starting to buy into the interdimensional, paranormal, ghost-type correlation.
Yeah, in some cases,
there. Yeah, and I think there's a shift, and I think some of the newer people who are writing about their experiences tend to be along that lines, and I think that's why they're trying to incorporate more of the ghost phenomenon in there, because I think people who are contactees can experience or share some of those paranormal experiences that tend to follow them, like you said, after they've had an experience.
Well, have you yourself had any other sorts of paranormal experiences even before you moved to Vegas?
Before I moved to Vegas, I had, little things. Nothing major, but little things. It was interesting is I have a now 11-year-old son, but when we were back in Massachusetts, he always talked about his imaginary friend called Binko. And things would happen at the house or in his room when we weren't in there, and we'd go in, and he's like, Binko did it, I didn't do it. And I always thought that was weird, and I'd never paid much attention until we came out here.
Yeah.
And then I started talking about UFO stuff, and he started saying, oh, yeah, I used to have a little friend that used to come to my room all the time. Uh-huh.
I usually pay attention to children when they say things like that. We had a case in Connecticut where the little boy who was 4, or slightly less than 4, said, his invisible friend was in the tree. We got some infrared shots of the tree, and sure enough, there was this thing coming down out of the tree, which is quite remarkable. So I listen to kids.
Yeah.
All right. So tell us, take a minute now, Tina, if you would, and tell us about the charity that you're going to be supporting when you come back home here to New England.
We have I have a couple charities that I always support. Out here, I'm a huge golden retriever lover, so I support the golden retrievers out here. I also have my kids' book, which just came out, called The Case of the Missing Sneaker. Part of that proceeds is going to the Child Bereavement Fund in the UK, which was Joey Essex's charity. So any of my proceeds from that book, my profits, are going directly to that charity until September. And then when I come out here, I'm a professional bowler. So we have a charity event for my old boss, who passed away years ago, and the bowling center that I grew up in, believe it or not, it was built in 1960, is still around.
Huh.
So I'm going to be coming back and bowling as part of this charity event to help raise money for the fund that they have.
Oh, very good.
And they give out scholarships and stuff like that, which is kind of neat.
Okay, very good. And just before we end here, do you have any advice for anyone who believes that they've had an abduction experience? You know, should they talk about it? When should they talk about it? How should they talk about it, and to whom?
The best thing to do is to try to seek out groups.
In groups.
Make sure make sure groups, like we have out here, Misha Johnson, she does a superb job out here for, she calls it the Starseed Support Group, but it started out as a UFO group for contactees, and a lot of contactees still go. But really watch, because there are a lot of researchers who come to these groups, prey on people like this, take their stories and throw them in a book,
yes,
and make money off the book.
Yeah.
And these people aren't getting their story. But if they've had an experience, they need to seek out people. I mean, I chat with people all the time worldwide, but chat to people who've had experiences. Share. I've always said that we all have a small piece of the puzzle. And the more of us experiencers that get together and put those pieces on the table, the better the picture's going to come, because disclosure is not going to come from our government. It's not going to come from researchers. It's going to come from people who've had experiences that put their stuff out there, and they connect with others around the world.
Okay. We've got just maybe time for one quick question. Why the secrecy? Does the government really know that much? Why the secrecy? I mean, we live in a world where people are used to the Klingons and Star Trek and all sorts of aliens. Why the secrecy still?
Personally, my take is I think the secrecy was started years ago. It's now manifested into its own entity, to where if the government were to come out now and say, oh, yeah, we've had it, it'll be even less distrust than we already have for our government.
That would be difficult.
But I also think you have, 90% of the population on this planet believes in some form of religion. The problem with most of these forms of religion is they don't allow into their man-made religion, their Bibles, their Quran, whatever you want to put it in, none of them allow for life outside this planet.
I'm not so sure about that.
Changed. Well, you name me one religion that has any kind of belief system besides what was man-made and put on this planet.
Okay. Well, there it is. Tina Marie Caouette, thanks for a great interview, and thanks again. We'll see you when you come up here. Make sure you get in touch. And again, Tina, give us your website again, Tina Marie Entertainment.
Yeah, Tina Marie Entertainment or RestrictedAirSpaceRadio.com.
Very good. Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Ben. Good luck tonight on Coast to Coast.
Oh, yeah, wish me luck staying awake. That's what I'll need. Okay.
Have some coffee. All right, guys. Bye.
All right, good night. So you heard it, folks. If you have insomnia tonight, I'll be the guest on the Coast to Coast AM, the second half of the show, with George Noory, 3 to 5 a.m. our time here on the East Coast. You can hear it on any of 570 radio stations that syndicate it, and it's all over the Internet and the apps. George and I will be talking about the paranormal in American history. Kind of unusual.
Indeed.
With an emphasis on the Bell Witch case.
Alrighty, so on Saturday, September 5th, we're scheduled to speak once again at the Exeter UFO Festival in Exeter, New Hampshire. The town-wide event is organized by the Kiwanis Club to benefit local children's charities. Other speakers include this evening's guest, last week's guest, I should say. That was Stanton Friedman, along with Richard Dolan and many other UFO greats. We'll provide information about that as the date approaches.
Saturday, October 10th, we'll once again be speakers at the Greater New England UFO Conference at City Hall in Leominster, Massachusetts. Other speakers will be very many, the same as Ben just mentioned, pretty much. And there'll be more information as we go.
Okie doke. Don't forget to visit our show website. That's behindtheparanormal.com with all sorts of goodies for you, including nearly 600 free podcasts from both our shows on ON 1240 and our 4.5-year run on CBS Radio, along with special shows and podcasts.
Now, we're all aware of the terrible earthquake in Nepal recently, an especially terrible thing to happen to the nicest people in the world. Before we recommend a charity, we check it out thoroughly. And if you can donate to help the Nepal earthquake victims, Ben and I recommend Action Against Hunger. It's an American charity where nearly 87% of what you donate actually gets to the people who need it, as opposed to administrative expenses, etc. So if you buy any of my books, there are 4 written by me at behindtheparanormal.com at the bookshop there. Before this coming Saturday, May 9th, we will donate $1 for each purchase to Action Against Hunger to help the Nepal earthquake survivors. And you can find my books also at Amazon.com, etc., and the usual suspects there. And there are 2 new books just released by Global Communications. I'll talk about one tonight, and that will be
The Bell Witch Project.
Well, the Bell Witch Project and the UFO Repeaters, which has our good friend Joe Ferrier here.
Alrighty, so next Monday, May 11th, here on ON 1240 and ONWorldwide.com, we welcome in studio Mexican native and full-blooded Aztec shaman, that is Ruben Urrutia.
We leave you this evening with a quote attributed to that old sweetheart Albert Einstein: "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough." I'm Paul Eno.
And I'm Ben Eno, and thanks for joining us on our great cosmic journey, and we shall see you next time.
Return to this radio frequency 167 hours from now for another edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno.